नमस्कार, मैं हूं एस.क सिंह। जागरण प्राइम में आपका स्वागत है। आज के इस खास शो में हम बात करेंगे भारत और ब्राज़ील के द्विपक्षीय संबंधों की। वैसे तो दोनों देशों के रिश्ते 5 सदी से ज़्यादा पुराने हैं, लेकिन अगर हम आधुनिक काल की बात करें तो भारत और ब्राज़ील के बीच जो रिश्ते हैं वो 75 साल से दोनों देशों के बीच राजनयिक संबंध बने हुए हैं। भारत 1947 में जब आज़ाद हुआ तो उसके अगले ही साल 1948 में दोनों देशों ने एक दूसरे के यहाँ डिप्लोमेटिक मिशन स्थापित किए थे। दोनों देशों में कई समानताएं भी हैं, जैसे दोनों देशों में विशाल बायोडाइवर्सिटी है, कल्चरल डाइवर्सिटी है। दोनों देश G20, G4, ब्रिक्स, इंटरनेशनल सोलर अलायंस और अब ग्लोबल बायोफ्यूल अलायंस के भी पार्टनर हैं। ऐसे इस तरह के कई वैश्विक मंचों पर दोनों देश साथ हैं। हाल के वर्षों में दोनों देशों के बीच व्यापार भी तेज़ी से बढ़ा है। इन सब बातों पर चर्चा के लिए हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं भारत में ब्राज़ील के राजदूत हिज एक्सेलेंसी केनेथ दा नोब्रेगा। मिस्टर नोब्रेगा पुर्तगीज़ और इंग्लिश के अलावा फ्रेंच, स्पेनिश, पोलिश और जर्मन भाषाएं जानते हैं। वे यूरोप, मिड ईस्ट और अफ्रीका में ब्राज़ील के सेक्रेटरी रह चुके हैं। ब्रिक्स और इप्सा जैसे संगठनों में उन्होंने अपने देश का सू शेर्पा के तौर पर प्रतिनिधित्व किया है। कुछ समय के लिए वे ब्राज़ीलियन विदेश मंत्रालय में ट्रेड पॉलिसी एडवाइज़र भी थे। वे म्यूज़िक के भी स्टूडेंट रहे हैं। उनसे इन सारे मुद्दों पर चर्चा करेंगे। सो वेलकम मिस्टर नोब्रेगा, लेट अस स्टार्ट द इंटरव्यू। So India's term as the president of G20 is going to complete in November. So how do you analyze India's presidency?
Well, there have been many achievements, but let me just throw light on some of these achievements that I think that stand out. I think that in general, Indian presidency has really made a point in promoting open discussions, has demonstrated a tireless disposition to consensus building, and also very important, promoted global South countries' concerns and interests high on the agenda of the G20. So this is very, this was, I think, a historical achievement. And of course, perhaps even more important, I don't know if it's more important, but it's very important, it's that India managed to broker a summit declaration against a very complex geopolitical background, as you all know. And I think that if this declaration had not been issued, today we would be talking about the G20, the demise of the G20, the G20 no longer as a forum where countries can sit around the table and dialogue and listen to each other. Yeah. It's not just about making declarations, but listening to each other. So, and of course, the Global Biofuel Alliance, which was launched, which for us is very important. As you know, Brazil has been engaging bilaterally for some years now with India in order to share its experience as a very intensive user of biofuels in its light transportation. So for us it was very important that India brought to the G20 with in full swing the biofuel alliance. Yes.
And Brazil is taking over as the next president of G20.
Right.
So what, in your opinion, what are the efforts taken by India which Brazil should take forward?
Well, I think that Brazilian presidency of the G20 will be to a considerable extent a continuity of the Indian presidency, because we share values, we share common visions of the big challenges facing humanity these days, and also we have been traditionally a voice for the Global South for many years. So in this sense, I think that we will build on the Indian presidency. Of course, some countries adopt some differences in political discourse and emphasis. So building on an Indian presidency, basically we would put an emphasis on bringing to the center stage of climate change discussions the concept of sustainable development in all its three components, not only environmental components, social and economic. We feel that there has been in the last years a tendency by, I think, developed countries to put only emphasize only the preservation or environmental dimension of the concept, and to the detriment of the other two dimensions, which are so important for global South countries, because we are talking about historical transition to in terms also of paradigm of production, and we are moving to a new economy. And of course, as we move to a new economy, we have to take care, be cautious, because there will be winners and losers. So we have to make sure that this transition will be an inclusive transition, that poorer countries will not be left behind in this brave new world of green economy. So another point, very important point for us, is development financing, which has to do of making sure that developed countries stick to their promises of aid to ODAs, development aid, and also we have to work on new creative financing products to developing countries, because, as you know, many of the developing countries have recovered in a very sometimes unbalanced way and precarious way from the pandemic crisis, and this has affected their the capacity to cope with the financing payback needs, right? So we have to find ways to devise new financing products in order to again include developing countries in the finance world, in the sense of having access to those resources. And the fourth is promotion of gender equality, also building on Indian presidency. It's very important for us, not only making sure that salaries of women and men converge, and also the question of violence against women and girls. And lastly, I think, of course, the promotion of reform of the global governance institutions, which is also an emphasis of this presidency. We think G20 is very important, but G20 is no substitute for multilateral institutions, because there everybody takes part, all countries take part there, right? So these are, I would say in a nutshell, our five priorities.
India and Brazil, both the countries have completed 75 years of diplomatic relationship. Both share similar values and concerns in many fields. In your opinion, what are the areas in which India and Brazil have the strongest cooperation?
Well, let me say as a starting point that throughout my career as a Brazilian diplomat, I have coordinated with Indian colleagues in UN, in Geneva, then as a sous-chef of BRICS and IPSA. So based on this first-hand experience, I'm really convinced that the two countries can make a difference as the mainstays when it comes to promoting discussions and make suggestions for solutions of the big global challenges faced by humanity. So this is my starting point. Also, of course, the sheer size of both countries, population, geographic extension, economy, I think that it gives us a standing and also legitimacy, because we have been traditionally always voicing concerns of global South countries in multilateral fora. So we have not only weight, but we have the legitimacy, the historical legitimacy of claiming that we need to exert influence on international discussions. But turning to specifically to your question, I think that climate change is, I think, everything has to do with inclusion. It's, I would say, it's the main starting point of our cooperation in multilateral fora. But in climate change, it's clear the idea of making sure that developed countries stick to to the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. They really at some point in time had to comply with their commitment of mobilizing $100 billion of resources, also implementing the loss and damage fund. So I think in the climate change area, which is more than climate change, because climate change, it's also about transition to a new world, a new economy. So this is an all-encompassing theme, if you think. Climate change is an all-encompassing theme because of this. So I think these are the most, some of the most important areas where we multilaterally could coordinate, but also has to do with promoting democracy, because we stand out as two large, very large democracies of the South. So we are societies which have chosen the democratic path to development. So this makes a big difference, and this is an inspiration for many countries, many developing countries. So I think this is another area, and of course promoting bioenergy. I think it's another area where we can make a difference together. Or there are many areas, but I'm just thinking of some of the main ones.
In the last few years, both the countries are focusing on bilateral trade. And in last 2 years, it has the trade between two countries, bilateral trade had almost doubled, more than doubled. Yeah. So despite 75 years of a stable and good relationship, why did it take to both the countries to focus bilateral trade so long?
Well, this is a very good question. I think my guess would be, or my suggestion would be, that first the geographic distance of both countries, and also because I think our business communities were focusing on other partners, because at the end of the day, the economic and trade relations, they are built by private sectors, basically, right. Private sector. So I think this has been changing. I think this is why we have seen this trade in both directions grow, and we as governments, we have noticed that, and we are trying to bring together the business communities as facilitators. I think, for example, when President Lula came and had for the G20, had a bilateral meeting on the margins of the G20 with Prime Minister Modi, they launched together the business forum, the Brazilian Business Forum. The idea that the governments, they can facilitate. And also we had the B20 as a part of the one of engagement group, where we saw an unprecedented number of Brazilian businessmen here. So it says a lot about a newfound interest. I think that in general Brazilian business kind of woke up to India. You know that in November, this coming November, I receive at most 4 or 5, at least 3 high-level missions from Brazil, from the Minister of Agriculture, from the governor of the state of Mato Grosso, which is a big agribusiness producer in Brazil, and governor of the state of Paraná, which is also an agricultural powerhouse, but also industrial. Chances are that a third governor is coming, of the Rio Grande do Sul, which is now it's a country with a state with a very diversified industrial base. So this is so you are seeing this clear interest in trying to do more business in India, and of course the areas are agriculture that stand out, and oil, which because the main bulk of our exports, for example, to India is oil and agriculture, but of course ethanol now, which has been the object of discussions now for more than 3 years between industrial interests here in India and in Brazil. Machines, auto parts, medicines, we are the pharmacy of the world. We export a lot to Brazil, and the idea is to expand these exports. So there are clear new areas which are emerging. And of course, Indian FDIs in Brazil, I think a conservative estimate will be $3.5 billion of FDIs, Indian FDIs in Brazil. Yes, Tata, Sterlite, Mahindra. This is the ones that come to mind, but there are others.
There are many more.
Yeah, many more. And some Brazilian firms also coming here to India. WEG has been here for many years. Embraer is looking for opportunities here also to have partnerships here. Also ATM firm, machine firms, I forgot the name of the Brazilian firm, but who produces ATMs here. And also Alpargatas, who produces also shoes. So there has been a host also of Brazilian investments in India in the last years. So I think the perspectives, the outlook is good. Is good. Let's see how it evolves.
An Indian team led by Commerce Secretary had visited Brazil in the first week of this month. He had said that a bilateral trade target of $50 billion has been set for 2030. Yes. So, having the experience of a former trade policy advisor, and what sectors would you suggest to focus upon?
I think that this idea of targeting $50 billion goal is realistic if we see how there has been the bilateral trade has been evolving, and also investments have been FDIs involving, but because of course the influence also trade, bilateral trade. I think that I have already mentioned. I think this. Clearly, agriculture, oil, machinery, bioenergy, medicines. These are some of the main ones. And I also have to say that there is a clear sense that against this new or emerging geopolitical background you are living, global background, the fact that the two countries have a strong relation based on experience of dialogue and mutual trust. This will also have a positive influence, because now trade is of course always about making money, but it's about also relying on trustable partners for essential goods like food, like energy. So the idea that the two countries have this really firm basis of mutual trust, I think also will help. In the case of ethanol, for example, which is one of the promises of our bilateral relations, we have been discussing technically how to connect, how to our production chains of ethanol production and also auto parts production, because Brazil was making always a point of sharing its experience of flex fuel motors. You know that in Brazil, if a citizen goes to a fuel station with his flex fuel car, he can tank for example, 50% ethanol, 50% oil, or 100% ethanol, 0% oil, because it's a flex fuel motor. So, and this has helped a lot. First, reducing emissions in Brazil is very important. I don't have the figures in mind now, but there has been a very important reduction in emissions in Brazilian cities because of this mass. 85% of Brazilian cars are run on flex fuel motors. So this is a very important thing. And the other rationale for that is that it creates jobs in the agricultural sector, right. It creates income in agricultural sectors, and also it has to do also with energy security, because these are produced nationally, internally, the fuel. So this is a very important partnership which has been emerging. And last but not, I think two other takeaways of this meeting, aside from a general stock taking where our bilateral relations are, we also talked about the opportunities Brazil has for infrastructure investment in Brazil. We have now entered in a phase of a new wave of infrastructure works in Brazil, sanitation, energy transmission, you name it, amounting to $347 billion. So we are looking for partners willing to invest in Brazil. This was also raised. And of course, we have announced that Brazil, together with Mercosur countries, will conduct a study, a very concrete study on business opportunities, trade opportunities, so that this could be the basis, at least from our side, to engage in negotiating, in expanding our trade agreement. You know that our trade agreement is a very limited one, 453 tariff lines. Or 450, I'm not so sure of the precise number. So the idea is that there is also the political will. This is the point I would like to make: the political will to engage in trade negotiations.
So you said a lot about biofuel and that. So my next question is related to climate change. The joint statement issued on 10th September after bilateral meeting between our Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President His Excellency Lula says that the two countries commit to broadening bilateral cooperation on climate. Brazil is also facing impact of climate change like heat waves and droughts. Yes. So at a global level, a lot has been said about climate change, but the action taken is not at the desired level. What would you like to say there?
Well, I think that first we have, just as a starting point, we have together the group basic, which brings together in the climate negotiations, as you know, Brazil, China, South Africa, and India. They have issued a long statement in September in New York, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And there you see the main points, which is the basic stands for requesting or making firmly the point when it comes to the negotiations with developed countries that they need to mobilize. I have already told, but I'm just repeating and recalling. This is very important. Stick to the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, sticking to their commitment of mobilizing the $100 billion resources.
Not a single year they have provided this money.
Yes, that's the point, because it's about this is already it's more than a political commitment or economic commitment. It's a moral imperative, because when you see the need of not only of mitigation but adaptation to the new climate conditions in this global south, we know what you are talking about. This is a moral imperative. Before, you see the floods, what's happening. In Brazil now we have had terrible floods in the southern part of the country. Now there is overly dry season in the northern part of the country, and so on. So it's about saying, if you want we have to move together in terms of promoting this new world where you have a green economy, and also we are taking care of countries who have no historical responsibility for what's going on. That's the plain fact, right?
The fact is that the countries who have contributed least, they are facing the more.
Yes. Another point where we want to make a point together with India is about trade, because we are seeing now emerging so-called environmentally motivated protectionism. You see, in many countries, of course, you can say that the motivation at the end of the day are sound. They are sound motivations, but the way this has been implemented, it's really it's about trade barrier. And then there is this argument: no, this is WTO compatible. So you introduce climate-related barriers within the multilateral trading system, but you do not bring into the multilateral trading system the rationale of the climate change law. Meaning, for example, if you are going to block the exports of a country, a small country who has whatsoever no historical responsibility for the emissions, has a very good NDC, but it happens that one of his export products have a carbon footprint, and then they are going to be blocked. Their exports are going to be blocked on the border of some rich countries. So it makes no sense of not bringing together and converging, making convergence of climate change law and multilateral trade policy law. We need this conversion because what we have been seeing when we listen to the arguments, no, this is WTO compatible. No, should be also climate change compatible. And this is also something which we should really pay attention to.
Okay. So I was reading about you also. So I saw that you were a student of music sometime back.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you listen Indian music also, and which Indian music do you like the most?
Well, I have studies in Western classical music, but it has always been to me music, passion, entertainment, but also some kind of soul searching, because it's so important for my everyday life. I listen to music every day. And Indian classical music is very sophisticated, and it has attracted my attention also because it's not just about entertainment. Indian classical music wants to induce states of mind, different state of minds in people, and this is for me it's a new frontier for me, a new intellectual frontier, but also a new frontier in terms of soul searching. So I'm listening to Indian classical music and also reading books on the history of your classical music. Okay. So this for me I have to find time for that. It's very difficult sometimes to find time with such an agenda.
That's nice. So you must have been very busy these 2 months after you came to India. So which places in India would you like to see?
Well, I have to see your architectural and archaeological riches, which I have not. I have seen some of them because I have been to India before, because as Bricks Sushurp, Ipsa, I have been to India a couple of times, so I in all these trips, I tried also to see something. So I have been to Rajasthan.
Those must have been very short visits.
Yes. Once I took 10 days off after one mission, and I traveled through the country, took the opportunity. The ticket is very expensive, so I took the opportunity. I brought my wife. So we toured basically in Rajasthan. But I also have been to Chennai and also to Mumbai, but I would like to see all these Hampi sites, Ajanta, Ellora, the famous Ellora caves. Also Vrindavan. I don't know if it's a good pronunciation. Vrindavan, the site. Vrindavan, where Krishna spent his childhood, his young days. So I have lots of things to do. No, I think 24 hours of the day will be not enough here for me because of all the riches of the country and the need to deliver also for the bilateral.
One is, I think, just 200 kilometers or so from here.
Yes,
not more.
Yes, you can. So
nice. तो ये थे ब्राज़ील के राजदूत मिस्टर नोब्रेगा। इनका कहना है कि भारत ने G20 में जो क्लाइमेट चेंज, फिर महिलाओं की बराबरी, डेवलपमेंट फाइनेंसिंग, इन सब के क्षेत्र में जो भारत ने कदम उठाए थे G20 के दौरान, तो वे बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण कदम हैं। और जब G20 1 दिसंबर से नया प्रेसिडेंट बनेगा तो वह इन सब मुद्दों को आगे ले जाना चाहेगा। तो इस खास बातचीत में इतना ही। थैंक यू मिस्टर नबरेगा, थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Thank you for inviting me.